Let's dive into a real-life mystery unfolding in the icy, unforgiving waters of the Bering Sea. This is a place where the horizon stretches endlessly, and the cold bites through even the thickest gear. For generations, these waters have been a lifeline for countless fishing communities, providing a bounty that seemed as vast as the ocean itself. Now imagine a city of 10 billion, gone in just 2 years. That's the scale of what happened to the snow crabs. Once so plentiful they seemed inexhaustible, they vanished almost overnight, leaving behind only empty traps and silent docks. One season, the waters between Alaska and Russia teemed with crabs. The next, they were eerily empty. The ocean floor, once crawling with life, became a barren wasteland. Fishermen who had relied on these catches for decades were left stunned and helpless. This wasn't a minor blip in the ecosystem, it was a biological catastrophe. Scientists were left scrambling for answers, and entire coastal towns faced economic ruin as the industry ground to a halt. Nearly $1 billion disappeared from the North American seafood market almost overnight. The ripple effects were felt far beyond the docks, impacting restaurants, markets, and families across the continent. Dutch Harbor, once the bustling crab capital of the world, fell silent. Boats that once braved the elements sat idle, processing plants shuttered, and the hum of industry faded into an uneasy quiet. For many, it felt like the end of an era, but this isn't just about numbers or lost profits, it's about generations of fishing families now facing an existential threat. Their way of life, passed down through decades, is suddenly at risk. These families have weathered fierce storms, dangerous seas, and the daily risks of life on the water. But nothing could have prepared them for this invisible, sudden loss that struck without warning. The big question remains: where did all the crabs go? Was it disease, overfishing, or something even more complex? The answer is tangled in missing data, political debates, and the undeniable reality of a changing climate. Each clue leads to more questions, and the search for answers grows more urgent by the day. The story of the missing snow crabs is more than a local tragedy. It's a warning for us all. Our world's ecosystems are more fragile and interconnected than we ever imagined. Solving this mystery is urgent, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The future of an entire way of life, and the health of our oceans, hangs in the balance. Now, let's add global politics to the mix. The seafood industry, already a complex web of international trade, suddenly found itself at the center of a geopolitical storm. In March 2022, the US government announced a sweeping ban on all Russian seafood imports in response to the war in Ukraine. This decision was part of a broader package of sanctions, but for the seafood world, it was a seismic event. This wasn't just a political move, it sent shockwaves through the global crab market, upending long-standing supply chains and business relationships overnight. The US had relied on Russia for over 35 million pounds of crab a year, worth $700 million. Russian crab was a staple in American supermarkets and restaurants, filling a gap that domestic fisheries couldn't meet. When the ban hit, America's biggest supplier vanished overnight, just as Alaska's own crab stocks collapsed. The timing couldn't have been more disastrous for the industry. Suddenly, both domestic and foreign crab supplies were gone. The shelves that once overflowed with crab legs and claws were now eerily empty. Importers scrambled to find new suppliers, fishermen faced empty waters, and the market split in two. On one side, the US and its allies searching for new sources, and on the other, Russia cut off from its top customer and forced to look elsewhere. The ban's impact wasn't limited to politicians or big business. It hit docks, processing plants, and dinner tables across America. Workers lost hours, families saw their favorite dishes disappear, and entire communities felt the sting. The once stable crab market turned chaotic, with prices spiking and plummeting, and everyone, from traders to restaurant owners, wondering what would happen next. The rules of the game were rewritten in real time, new trade routes were explored, contracts renegotiated, and the industry was forced to adapt on the fly. The timing couldn't have been worse for the industry. Already battered by environmental challenges and supply chain issues, this was a blow few saw coming. The ban and the crab collapse created a perfect storm, threatening the livelihoods of thousands and shaking the industry to its core. The fallout was immediate, severe, and far-reaching. News headlines warned of shortages, and the uncertainty rippled through every link in the supply chain. The global seafood market would never be the same. The ban forced everyone to rethink where their seafood comes from and what the future of the industry might look like. The Russian seafood ban triggered instant chaos. Shipping containers full of Russian crab, already en route, became contraband, stranded at sea or stuck in ports. American importers faced huge losses on crab they couldn't legally touch. In Russia, cold storage overflowed with unsold product, over 10,000 tons piling up with nowhere to go. The entire supply chain, built for smooth trade, ground to a halt. With both Alaskan and Russian crab off the market, demand far outstripped supply. Canada became the only major alternative, and prices soared. Crab went from affordable luxury to high-end delicacy, out of reach for many. The ripple effects hit restaurants, seafood markets, and consumers nationwide. The crisis exposed just how fragile and interconnected our food systems are. One missing link, and the whole system unravels. The Great Crab Logjam was a wake-up call for global supply chains. Russia didn't wait for the US market to reopen, it pivoted fast. Russian crab exports shifted to Asia, with China, Japan, and South Korea becoming new primary buyers. This move stabilized Russia's fishing industry and shifted the center of the global crab trade eastward. The US, once a dominant player, lost its influence and scrambled for alternatives. American importers turned to Canada and Norway, but supply was limited and prices skyrocketed. The result? A $900 million collapse in the North American crab market. The ban meant to punish Russia ended up hurting American businesses and consumers. Russia found new buyers. The US market was left in turmoil. Higher prices, struggling importers, and lost global influence were the new reality. It was a classic case of unintended consequences. In a globalized market, cutting ties comes with a painful snapback. The economic casualties were far from the original target. Beneath the surface of political headlines and human conflict, a much larger and more silent crisis was unfolding in the depths of our oceans. While the world's attention was fixed elsewhere, the underwater world was changing in ways that would soon become impossible to ignore. Scientists, after years of research and mounting evidence, now point to climate change as the main culprit behind the catastrophic collapse of the snow crab population. Their findings are clear. The warming planet is reshaping marine ecosystems at a pace never seen before. The Bering Sea, once a haven of icy stability, has seen its waters warm dramatically. This shift created a deadly environment for snow crabs, which are highly adapted to cold, stable conditions. The rapid temperature rise left them struggling to survive. Warmer water sped up the crabs' metabolism, forcing them to require more food just to stay alive. But as their needs grew, their food sources dwindled. The result was widespread starvation, with countless crabs unable to find enough to eat. At the same time, shrinking sea ice eliminated the cold pool, a vital, frigid refuge where young crabs could safely grow. Without this sanctuary, juvenile crabs were left exposed to predators and harsh conditions, further reducing their chances of survival. The timing of this ecological disaster was especially cruel. Just as the ecosystem was collapsing, a global supply chain crisis hit, compounding the challenges faced by the fishing industry and coastal communities. The result was a devastating one-two punch, first for the snow crab species, and then for the people and industries that depend on them for their livelihoods. Entire communities felt the shockwaves. The fate of the snow crab is not just a tragedy for one species, it's a stark warning for all marine life as the climate continues to warm, threatening the delicate balance of entire ocean ecosystems. Their disappearance is a direct message from the ocean itself, a signal that the consequences of a warming planet are not distant threats, but urgent realities happening right now. The crabs didn't simply migrate elsewhere, they died in massive numbers, leaving behind empty traps and devastated fisheries. This is a wake-up call for the future of our oceans, a stark reminder that urgent action is needed to protect marine life and the communities that rely on it. The crisis is both environmental and economic, and it's far from over. The story of the snow crab is a warning, but also a call to action for us all. To grasp the impact, you need to know the people behind the catch. Alaskan crab fishing is one of the world's most dangerous jobs, 40 times deadlier than average. Fishermen endure brutal cold, 20-hour days, and constant danger from waves and heavy gear. A single mistake can be fatal in the freezing Bering Sea. The reward? A year's salary in a few weeks, if the crabs are there. When the crabs vanished, so did the work. Boats now sit idle, and thousands of workers are unemployed. The loss is more than financial. It's a blow to identity and purpose for entire communities. These are people used to fighting storms, not filing for unemployment. The disappearance of the snow crab has left them warriors without a war. They wait, hoping for the day they can return to sea. The stakes are personal, and the future is uncertain. Snow crabs aren't just seafood, they're vital to the Bering Sea ecosystem. As scavengers, they clean the ocean floor and feed predators like seals and cod. Removing 10 billion crabs creates a massive hole in the food web, destabilizing the system. Their complex life cycle means they can't be farmed like salmon or shrimp. The industry depends entirely on wild populations. If the crabs disappear, there's no backup plan. Their collapse is a biological alarm bell for the entire region. Protecting snow crabs means protecting their cold, wild habitat. Their value goes far beyond the market. They're irreplaceable in the ecosystem. Saving them is about saving the Bering Sea itself. While Alaskan fishermen struggled, Russia took a different approach. Since 2015, Russia has modernized its fleet with massive state-sponsored super trawlers and factory ships. These floating factories can catch, process, and freeze thousands of tons of crab without returning to shore. This industrial scale gave Russia a huge edge in global markets. Their system is built for export, allowing them to pivot quickly to new buyers. The US relies on smaller, independent boats, Russia on centralized, high-tech fleets. This difference in strategy shaped the global crab trade. Technology and government investment are as crucial as fishing itself. In this high-stakes game, Russia came prepared. After 2 years of empty pots, there's a glimmer of hope. Baby snow crabs are reappearing in the Bering Sea. It's not a full recovery, but it's a start. Fishermen are cautiously returning, not to harvest, but to gather data and monitor the fragile population. Quotas are tiny, focused on science, not profit. True recovery depends on more than just baby crabs. It needs a cooler Bering Sea and the return of sea ice. Climate change remains the biggest threat. The story ends with a question mark, not a period. Recovery is possible, but only if we address the root causes. Saving the snow crab industry means managing our impact on the planet. The fishermen are ready to do their part. The future of this tough, vital industry hangs in the balance.